What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we're continuing the Toronto Maple Leafs 2023-2024 player previews. This is Calle Jarnkrok. So if you're new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. Also, it's the last week for you guys to use my code APH on Manscape for 20% off and free shipping. I would really appreciate it if you did, because if you do, I have an opportunity to be a full-time sponsor with Manscaped. So use code APH for 20% off and free shipping. More of those codes used means more of these videos going out for you guys. I would really appreciate that. But we're going to talk about probably one of the most, if not the most underrated player on the Maple Leafs from last season, and that's Calle Jarnkrok. Now, he's a type of guy that was brought in and the Leafs had interest in for a few years now. And Kyle Dubas made that very clear. They went after him at a deadline, I believe. They've tried to sign him in free agency before. And he's one of those under-the-radar depth players that can move up and down the lineup. And guys like that don't grow on trees. And I think he's kind of been misconstrued and kind of like just thrown out the window because his cap hit is $2.1 million, and Leaf fans are like, well, they need to clear cap space, so why not just trade Jarnkrok? And again, if we're talking about trading Nylander or Jarnkrok, of course, you're going to trade Calle Jarnkrok, but this is a type of guy that with the cap going up and locked in for a few years, makes a ton of sense for the Maple Leafs, and it would be really tough to see a guy like this go because he's a really solid depth piece, and we're going to look at that because he is 31 years old, but again, in hockey, you know, a lot of guys are at their peak in this age. They're in their prime, I should say, within the next few years. You know, they usually cap out 34, 35 years old. So they've got him right in his prime where they want him. And, you know, he's not the biggest guy, 5'11", 186, but that doesn't matter. We're not going to worry about his cap hits here, except for the one that he's on right now, which is $2.1 million. But I want to look at his numbers here because this is what I call consistency. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Calle Jarnkrok actually put up his career high in points and in goals. Like, this guy was really fantastic last year for the Maple Leafs. And guys like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and William Nylander, when talking about this guy, specifically Matthews, they're very high on him. They like playing with him. And there was a lot of talk that Austin Matthews really wanted to play with Calle Jarnkrok and see, you know, how it would work. And when they started playing together, it worked out pretty well. Like, he put up decent numbers, and Jarnkrok was doing this at the bottom of the lineup and at the top of the lineup. Like, he's a bit of a Swiss Army knife for the Maple Leafs. And like I said before, that's very important, especially with a lot of new guys coming in this year. If stuff doesn't click right away and it doesn't work, the Leafs have fallback options in guys like Matthew Knies and Calle Jarnkrok, and guys that have proved that they can already play with these guys. So you need players like that. You can't just have a complete overhauls and hope that stuff works and cross your fingers. You need to see if guys can play with your big guys, and if they can, that gives you that stability and that fallback and that comfortability that you don't need to go out there and you know, revamp and completely redo things and go out and acquire other players and big names, because you have guys like Calle Jarnkrok in-house that make sense for your team right away. Taking a quick break to let you guys know about the sponsor of this video, Manscaped. Hockey season is coming up, and we all know it's important to stay fresh and protected on and off the ice. And well, Manscaped is here to help us do that. I've got the Performance Package 4.0 with me. I've even got my travel bag, and it's perfect for the dressing room. Inside holds the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. It features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to help reduce accidents down there using its advanced skin-safe technology. It's also waterproof and has an LED spotlight for a more precise shave. Next up is a game changer, and that is the Weed Whacker Nose Hair Trimmer. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and has proprietary skin-safe technology. That's going to help nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate nose holes. You're also getting the Crop Preserver below the waist deodorant and Crop Reviver below the waist toner. And like I mentioned earlier, Manscaped threw in 2 free gifts with the Performance Package 4.0. That is the Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Get 20% off and free shipping with my code APH at manscaped.com. That's APH for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Now back to the video. So like I said right away, I want to take a look at his numbers. So you can see with Nashville, he was always consistently in the 30 to 35 point range. And then with the Kraken, 26 points in 49 games played. And then with Calgary, he fell off a little bit with 4 points in 17 games played. So the Leafs were able to get a guy cheap for $2.1 million. And real quick, we'll go back to his deal that he signed with Kyle Dubas. He's only in year 2 of that deal with a modified no trade clause. So after this season, he still has another 2. And with the cap going up, this $2.1 million is the equivalent to like almost a league minimum contract. This is going to be very, very cheap. And if he continues to give you 15 to 20 goals, that's an absolute bargain. Because last year with the Leafs, in 73 games played, he had almost 40 points and he had 20 goals and 19 assists. In the playoffs, not the greatest numbers. But again, what I wanted to explain about Calle Jarnkrok was when it gets tough in the playoffs, the Leafs haven't had guys like Domi, Bertuzzi, and Reeves to pick up where the Leafs lack. And when you have guys like that out there, guys like Jarnkrok, who isn't like the type of guy that's going to go out there and fight and make massive hits, but he's also not as soft as people categorize him as. He will still play the game hard. But when you have guys like Domi, Bertuzzi, and Reeves, it opens up even more ice and gives them a little bit more of that comfort knowing, okay, I can go out there and play a little bit heavier because these guys are going to back me up if stuff gets a little bit too rough for the way that he plays, because that's just not the way that he plays. He's not a tougher guy. But those numbers will improve. And I actually really believe that Jarnkrok shouldn't be a guy that gets casted away and traded if the Leafs do get in trouble. There's a list of guys I would trade before him that are lower in the rankings of this team as well. But he provided really good offense, really good depth for this team. And like I said, he could play up and down the lineup to a point where it doesn't make sense for the Leafs to remove a guy like this. And if you're looking at what the roster could look like potentially this year, he could play on that third line or a fourth line role, and it wouldn't matter. He's going to fit in anywhere. Now, this is what I don't believe this is exactly what the lineup will look like. And of course, they're still over the cap. They'll have to make some choices. But if Jarnkrok plays with Nyes and Kampf, that's a nice little speedy defensive line that could be really effective. Or maybe he gets another chance in that top 6. Maybe they move Domi down. There's just so many different things that they can do. And again, it just proves that, Jarnkrok can play in the top 6. He can play on the third line. He can play on the fourth line. And he's going to give you production no matter where he goes. So I think a lot of people need to take it easy before, they send a guy out that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I took a look at Cap Friendly with contract comparables, and I want you guys to take a look at this as well. If you go on Calle Jarnkrok's Cap Friendly, which is over here, and you look at the Leaf contract signed and you compare this contract, you're going to see contracts that are current and former contracts of guys that are getting paid more, less, or similar money to him and are in the same point range. And then there's some guys that are not even remotely close to giving the same output of goals and points or just anything. Some guys are not even playing. They're like healthy scratches that are signed to the same amount of money and term as Jarnkrok. So the Leafs are getting a good player for a good number that makes sense for them now and in the future. I think this was a fantastic deal signed by Dubas a couple years ago. And I just really hope that this guy gets an opportunity to play on that third line with good talent, because the Leafs are knocking down some of their depth because of guys like Bertuzzi and Domi and Nyes and all these guys coming in. That rhymed a little bit. Shout out Eminem real quick. But I really believe in this guy, and I think that he's going to show that he's valuable for this team, for their depth. I think he can score another 20 goals this year, depending on where he plays. In terms of impressing or regressing, I think he's going to impress. He might not have the same amount of points, but I don't think that that's a bad thing, because if he doesn't play with Austin Matthews and these guys in the top 6, you're going to see a little bit of dip in the production. But for the minutes and time he's going to have on probably the third line, I think he's still going to impress. And I'm really excited to see what he does with this new team, with the new depth this year. So let me know what you guys think about Calle Jarnkrok in the comments down below. If you're new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Join the squad. Make sure to use my code APH on Manscape for 20% off and free shipping. Like I said, this is the last week that you can do it depending on when you're watching. I would greatly appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, let me know about Calle Jarnkrok. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video or stream. Peace.